pull up a seat to the EduTable
with Nicole Biscotti and Melissa Sidebotham.
Welcome. We're so glad that you've decided to pull up a seat to the EduTable. I'm Melissa Sidebotham, and I'm here with my good friend Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Biscotti. The EduTable is a place for parents and educators to share ideas and perspectives. Today we had scheduled our intro episode. However, with what's going on in the world today, we feel that this has become more of a critical conversation. Today we're going to discuss what's on the hearts and minds of parents and educators, and how what we're dealing with as a global community at the moment has impacted education and children.
Let me go ahead and introduce our guest panelist today. Let's go ahead and start with Evan Whitehead. He is a district administrator from Chicago. Hi, Evan.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And then next up, we have Becky, and she is a parent from Washington State.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
As you guys listen out in the audience, if you have any questions at all, you can always tag us on Twitter at the hashtag #PullUpASeat or submit a question to our forum at theedutable.com. On the website, you will find a growing repository of articles and videos about topics that are important for today's parents and educators. We always want to make sure we're keeping that conversation going.
Our first question today is, we want to know from where you're standing as a parent or an educator or both, what does the situation look like for you? Evan, if you could start.
Sure. So I would say it's definitely a different time. You know, this is some uncharted territory and waters. We're in an unprecedented time for education. And I would say that it's going to really test us and stretch us a little bit in terms of our thinking, our mindset, and also looking at the way that we educate our students in the future. And also another big component is the way in which that we build rapport, relationships with our families as well. This is really going to be a situation where we're going to test each other, and we're going to see what truly what we're made of, and the amount of sincerity and empathy that we have for one another.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you that this is a time that we really more than ever need to look at coming together for the best interest of our children. Melissa, from where you're standing as a principal and as a mother, what does the situation look like for you?
It is alternately very exciting and terrifying all at the same time, because the entire experience of education as we know it has been completely turned on its ear. So we really have to focus on reimagining what that education experience is going to look like, both as parents and as educators. And I think the bottom line is if we don't come together as parents and educators, we can't make this work. So what we're doing right now is so important.
Absolutely. I think you're right that it's more critical than ever to really take a really good look at education and how we can improve things moving forward, and how education is able to morph from in the building to online, and what we're learning as we do that process. Becky, from where you're standing as a mother, I believe you have 2 children in middle school and high school. What does the situation look like for you?
Yes, I do. I have a son who's in 7th grade and a daughter who's a sophomore in high school. And, I think I was really stressed out when word came that we were going to online classes, because I also work full-time as well. So I am actually home now, working from home and watching both of my kids. They're old enough where they don't necessarily need to be watched, but where the place that I work has asked everybody to work from home if they can. And so we're going to start our online learning next week. And so the teachers have been in contact with us via phone, text, and emails. And I've been really appreciative of that. And the information has sort of been trickling in as they know what they're doing. Because as I understand it, the teachers and the educators have been meeting this week to prepare to start online classes next week. And I was a little stressed out at the beginning, but I've actually started to kind of lean into it and to relax a little bit and to breathe. And so I'm feeling optimistic about it.
I think it's interesting what you're mentioning is very interesting because as we have had to move to an online learning model, really parents are largely becoming homeschoolers. And without any preparation, any time to process, people that homeschool do so for a variety of reasons. However, they've thought through the process and they've decided to do that. Whereas all of a sudden we're kind of saying, okay, so here we go, America. You're going to do your job at home, so it's going to look differently, and you're going to homeschool as well. And I think that that's a very difficult transition for parents. And as educators, our role is temporarily changing just a little bit from being the primary educator to maybe also being a support for parents as they take this on.
Absolutely. Um, let's go ahead and move into question number 2. And given what's going on right now in the world, what in the broader scope is on your mind about education, maybe kind of in the longer haul down the road? Nicole, do you have anything you want to share about that?
Yes, I do. I've been thinking a lot about how online learning has been around for a while. It's primarily been used um, in college at the college level. Many of adults have taken courses online, and really for the K through 12 level, 12 grades, it's either been as an alternative program or it's been more of a supplemental piece. But we haven't actually, in most cases, had to rely on online learning. And I think that having to do so abruptly is really, at the end of the day, a very expensive learning opportunity for us. Expensive, I say, because it's at the cost of a lot of stress, probably to kids and parents and educators. However, when all the dust settles and everything is calmer, we have an opportunity to really look at what worked, what didn't work, what inequalities become blaringly obvious. So I think that this is a really relevant learning piece for us.
Absolutely. Evan, she brings up an interesting point about, the different maybe flaws in our systems that this could bring to light. What opinions do you have around that?
Well, I think that this time has really magnified some of the challenges that we have in our education system and some of the deficits. For example, equity issues are now coming to light and they're magnified, correct? As we talk about um, virtual or online learning, questions such as internet access, access to a mobile devices that are going to be compatible for the platforms that we're looking to utilize for communication. Also, as we talk about bandwidth and internet access, just a week ago, we may think we were able to think that possibly, if you don't have internet access, you may be able to go to your local library, but that's no longer a reality anymore. Um, even the use of schools that are one to one in terms of devices, this brings up another challenge, and because not all schools have students that are able to take their devices home. They may be one to one, but it's in the building in school. But now, they have to look at how do we provide devices to all students so they could, take those home and utilize them. The other part is that, as we talk about challenges for students, now in the perspective, if you think about it, students that have had special needs, students that have had learning challenges, maybe even behavioral challenges, they never kind of fit the mold, right? And now that's the norm for every student. Their world is being turned upside down and it's not what they're used to and they don't fit. And it's really bringing light to the idea of personalized learning, differentiated instruction, using different learning modes and ways to reach children and students. And also, the other challenge is now that that's being magnified is the fact that this social emotional component that a lot of us have spoken about and talked about the need for social emotional learning and social emotional competencies, for students, but also for adults. Now it's kind of coming to light that we have this situation that's a crisis. It is a traumatic situation, and things that are happening have happened so quick and so rapidly. We need to be mindful of the social emotional component. And one of the biggest things about empathy and understanding what that means for another person right now, what they're going through. Even though that may be, for me, I may be stable and everything may be going well and great, but that's not necessarily for my colleagues, maybe not necessarily for if I'm an administrator, for the teachers that I oversee, and definitely for the families that are experiencing this, because they have a lot going on as well. So I just, it's good. We need to be mindful of that and everything that we do, because that's going to be the foundation that's going to carry us over during this time. And then also, once this does end and we have to transition back to whatever the new normal is going to be, we need to be mindful of that as well.
I think it's really interesting how you point out that next transition is going to be yet another new normal, and that could be an additional layer of trauma, if you will. So I think being trauma informed and using those tools, those social and emotional tools in our practice is truly very important. Let's go ahead and hop over to Becky right now. Tell us about what your thoughts are about education with what's going on in the world.
Well, my heart really does go out to the kids with special needs in the classroom, because they do need extra help and different kinds of help, and I know a lot of my friends who have children with special needs really rely on the expertise of the educators and the educational system, and they rely a lot on them just to get through their day. But speaking for my own family, I'm kind of thinking my son might really enjoy learning from home, because he's one that doesn't necessarily fit into a regular classroom. He's always struggled with sitting still and focusing on things that are not necessarily movement based. And so he's having an opportunity at home to do a project and then to get up and get around and move around and do things other than, something in the classroom. So it's a little less structured for him. And then he can sit back down and then do another project, because he does actually have a book report due this week. And I'm noticing that he's really thriving in that environment. So that's kind of interesting to see. I'm like, wow, I'm going to have a hard time maybe getting him back in. So that's kind of fascinating to me a little bit. Whereas my other child, my daughter, is very classroom focused. She thrives in that environment, and she's certainly struggling being at home, especially with her brother. So, you know, it's a challenge. I keep reminding them every single day that we're in this together, and that they're going to have something to tell their kids about someday. And this is historic. And so I think it's kind of an exciting time in a way, because they're going through something huge that is going to shape not just them personally, but this entire generation. And I think that's really exciting.
There certainly is a possibility, the opportunity rather, for learning, because you're right, we are having very unique circumstances. I find it interesting that you mentioned that one of your kids prefers to learn from home. My son, Jason, has ADHD, and he's thrilled because all he ever asks me to do is to homeschool him. So now he's getting his wish. Whereas my daughters that just turned 11, the twins, are extremely social and are getting a little stir crazy. There's some moments here where people get a little frustrated in my house, but overall, it's been an opportunity for some great family time. I wanted to move into the next question and talk about the barriers that people face in their communication between parents and educators. Evan, what do you see as some of the barriers and I'd love for you to speak from your experience as a district administrator, as an educator, and also as a dad.
Sure. So, you know, for from a parent perspective, um, I would say that I've been very fortunate in the communication that I've received from the school districts of my son and daughter. They've been very transparent and communicated fairly well given all the circumstances, and I'm grateful for that. We've always had a great line of communication in our community in terms of our school district. They always, the foundation has been for them to really work on this family community engagement. It's kind of like one of their pillars, so to speak, of what they're doing. So in times like this, they have that social capital, if you'd like to use that term, so that now they have an opportunity to make a withdrawal. We put the deposits in, but now they can make a withdrawal with that. So parents are a lot more understanding, flexible in what's going on. They use multiple modes of communication to get the messages out, and so far it's going well. As an administrator, in my district that I work, you know, we've been doing a lot of work as well, and we've always had a really good rapport with the parents and families. They trust us. They know that we're doing what's best for their children, and we've really taken a focus of being that community center and community hub during this time. So, we're doing things like most folks are, providing breakfast and lunch, grab and go for students that have, so they can come and get, consistency in terms of their meals, for our students that are McKinney mental homeless eligible. We continue to send cabs to wherever they're living to pick them up, bring them to school, and then take them back to where they're staying right now. Even if that means that their time at the building just to come and see familiar faces with principal, teachers, administrators, office staff, if that's some type of consistency for them, and even though like the ride itself round trip may be longer than they're actually at school, we're doing things like that to reach out and make sure that we're there for them. We're using multiple modes of communication through email, messages, mass messages. We're using automated phone calls. We're using other platforms to communicate, and the last 2 days we've been using one of the virtual platforms to have some communication where we've just had, groups of teachers, students, and parents, participate in virtual online communication, just to kind of build that piece of, what, we're here for you. We're all going through this together, and once again, going back to looking at that component of making everyone feel that that they can be safe, and we're going through this together. So we do a lot for that, and we're also trying to make a balance between the communication that we have with parents, so that we're not overdoing it with the communication, so that there's so much that's in transition right now, making sure that we balance the amount of communication and what we put out, because we also don't want to create any unintentional angst by having to change the message so much that it's causing more harm than good.
That certainly makes sense. It is a balancing act. I know a lot of people, myself included, have felt like at times for example, the messages from the media are a little bit overwhelming. And we're getting a lot of information, and things are happening very quickly and changing quickly in regards to our jobs, in regards to our children's schools, in regards to local states of emergency, et cetera, and measures. So it is a lot. So I think that's very considerate that you guys are looking at sort of a balance between keeping parents informed, but also not trying to inundate them more. Becky, in your experience, what are the barriers that people are facing? Excuse me, I'm sorry, Melissa. What are the barriers that people face in communication between parents and educators?
Well, I think, before we were looking at the situation we're currently in, there are lots of things that stand in the way, and it can be a lack of understanding. It can be a little bit of fear. There can be mistrust. All of those things can really stand in the way for effective communication between educators and parents. But right now, what I'm seeing is because we're facing this global pandemic, people are really offering each other a lot more grace, and they're truly seeing the humanity in everybody around them. And I think that it has opened up that communication between parents and educators. I was listening to Evan talk about how, kids have been able to take a cab and come to school to see familiar faces. And out here in California, we're under a shelter in place order. And so, we cannot go to our school. The school is completely locked up and completely empty. And, I was surprised at my reaction when he was talking about that. I started to get a little choked up. But we have really been taking a lot of advantage of different online platforms like Zoom, which has been phenomenal by opening up its platform, especially to teachers, to make sure that they can have free accounts so that they can have this online learning opportunity. But I was able to pop into several different grade levels as they had their Zoom meetings today, and I could really see on the faces of the children how much they were craving not only to see their teacher and hear their teacher, but they were craving each other. And they're depending on the grade level, you could see parents in the background, and you could see some of that relief and some reassurance. They were feeling reassured by being able to be a part of that community. So that those are the kind of the things that are on my mind that way.
That makes sense. I think that one thing that's really been hard as a teacher to convey to my students is a sense of community, because we don't have that physical classroom community right now. And because we weren't in an online format prior, we haven't established that online either. So I've been looking at ways, maybe playing Kahoot remotely, or trying to find other ways where we can kind of be a group. Because I think that during isolation, social distancing, and all this fear and anxiety that's floating around, we definitely need that more than ever. Becky, what do you feel are the barriers that people face right now in the communication between parents and educators?
Well, I mean, just pretty much the obvious. We can't go in to meet with our teachers. We can't see the educators. We can't see the other students in our classrooms. So, and we don't know when that is going to be lifted. So I think, and it's really interesting that you were talking about community, because I'm trying to build community in my home, because we're used to seeing each other at the end of our day and sharing our individual lives. But now our individual lives are becoming a community life. And so I was kind of trying to talk to my kids about that today, where, we definitely need like an hour to ourselves at least sometimes, to go into our rooms, maybe read quietly, have a little bit of space from each other. But our lives are no longer separate. we are here. And so I think that building communities in the home is equally important, if not maybe more important than the kids building the communities in the classrooms, because this is where they are. And it brings to light, really, yes, we're a family, yes, we're tight knit, but we didn't share all these hours every day together. And so that's a whole different realm, a completely different reality. And it's been surprising. It's been interesting for sure. And we'll see how it goes.
Nicole, can I just jump in for a quick second around that piece of community? There are some there's some positives about living in a small town. We have this Facebook mommy group online, and they put out a shamrock walk on St. Patrick's Day, and it's continuing to move forward. And I thought this was just a beautiful way for us to come together as a community. And so what they did was they said, okay, if you've got kids, have them draw and color and cut out a shamrock and put it up in your window, because even in the shelter in place, we can go outside to walk a dog or to get a little extra exercise to go around the block and things. So when you're on that walk with your children, you can look around the street and count how many shamrocks are up in the windows as you go around. And I thought that was genius. So my young son and I went ahead and put a shamrock outside. And when we went on our walk, we were able to count, and I think we saw like 6. But it was equally as fun to look out the window and see other families in the neighborhood count our shamrock. And it made people, from a safe distance, be able to see you in the window and smile and wave. And it was kind of a neat way to build community within your own neighborhood. So that was neat.
That's
So
interesting.
let's go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was thinking of the people in Italy that through all the tragedy that they're experiencing, I keep reading stories about how they're singing in the windows, and people in Spain playing bingo through the windows of the apartments to one another.
Oh, isn't that fantastic?
It is. It's
I
nice to
love it.
see that human spirit persevere on, right?
I love that. And
Abs-
as a mom, I
yeah.
hope to do more of that.
So why don't we go ahead and shift gears a little bit, and talk about that support piece? Because I think right now, given our daily situations, we really need to offer support as educators to parents. But I also think that it's going to be equally as important for us as parents to offer that support to educators. So, Nicole, can you share a little bit about your thoughts on that, both as a mom and as an educator?
Yes, I've one thing that I found, I keep looking for the blessings, the silver linings, is that I had a conversation with my son Jason's teacher this evening while I was cooking. That was the most interesting conversation I've ever had with a woman. It had nothing to do with a complaint about Jason's behavior, or a test that was going to happen, or his report card. She literally just called me to see how I was doing and how the kids were. And we just chatted, and I learned so much about her in this conversation. And I think that, like Evan was talking about, that social capital, I think that this is
Mm-hmm.
schools we can look at. We don't give people a chance to become related. There's not that much unstructured opportunities to just chat and to just kind of share. So I think that one way that we can definitely support one another is by reaching out and checking in. And I think that what you said earlier about grace plays a huge role, because, in all honesty, parents are not homeschoolers. They did not go to school for this. They largely didn't even decide to do this. So, as educators, we have to have grace and realize that, as Evan was saying earlier, not everybody has access to the same technology or resources. And I'd like to expand on that as well. Not only resources, but not everybody has a desk in their house. Not everybody has a quiet place. Not everyone's home is able to be converted into a classroom right now. So just giving each other that grace and reaching out. And I think also, one thing that my principal mentioned today in an email, because we were discussing a policy that they had put into place, and then it was not really working that well. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for the feedback, because only that way do I know that it's not working. So I think we have to be very communicative respectfully at the moment, and realize that we're really all figuring this out together.
I think that's so key. As I go into, district meeting or meeting with my staff, or talking with individual parents, that feedback piece is crucial, because I heard somebody say it in one of my meetings today, we're flying the plane as we're building it. And I think, we are all in that same place. And without getting that feedback from all of the stakeholders, the parents, the kids, the teachers, the people writing curriculum, everybody, we won't be able to course correct. And if we can't course correct, we will not be successful. So I think that's a really key piece. How about you, Evan? What are your thoughts on this? Evan, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. So I have many thoughts on this, but I will want to go back to some of the earlier things I talked about in terms of this foundation with this social emotional piece for everyone. And when you talk about support, it's really supporting one another, and where are we going to put that support and what does it look like, right? Some of the ideas around compassion, right? And true love and giving grace and empathy, right? It all comes into play now because, this is a time that's new for everybody, and we need to really think about what are we doing during our daily lives, and what have we done to prepare us for this. For some of you that may know, I've talked about my 3 Bs: balance, boundaries, and breaks. And it's really critical right now that we do that, right? Because we need to balance our time and our efforts and what we're doing. We can't do everything in one day, right? Our children and our students won't be able to cram everything in one day, right? We can't fix everything in one day. It's not going to, it's not going to change in one day. We really need to think about that and finding time in our lives to balance things out. Also with our boundaries, where everyone's practicing and implementing, social distancing and what that means. But there's also another part of social distancing that has to do with some of the other emotional component that people rely on. My son in particular, he's very social. This is a challenging time for him. He's the type of kid that would not miss school for anything. But now, he can't have that interaction with his friends and his classmates. It's tough for him, right now. My daughter's a little different. She's more flexible. She likes the idea of being able to do schoolwork from home. And then as adults and as parents, our boundaries as well. Like, we're being tested. If you're not used to working from home, and it's a little different. If you're, having everyone in the house and not realizing how much time you're spending with each other, we got to find time to create some of those boundaries for ourselves so we can take time out. And then it breaks. We all need to take time and pause. This is the best time to work on meditating, if we have not done it yet, to work on some mindfulness and being present, even if it's only a couple minutes, like every hour. Break up your day, break up the day for your children, for their students. It doesn't have to, you don't have to try to have a 6-hour school day, because there's going to be, the reality is this is going to go on for a long time. And we have to try to set up some type of schedule that's going to be conducive for, a balance social, emotional, and academically. So, find time to take a pause, take a recess, a brain break, all these things. It's okay. It's okay to do that and build that in first without having to worry about some of the other things, because we have to make sure that we're ready to take this on as it does, and we're being the best for ourselves so we can be the best for others.
I think those are excellent points, Evan. And it makes me think of another little thing where it's important for us to recognize the emotions that bubble up, because we are under a tremendous amount of stress, and there is a lot of fear. And so, and there can be anger that comes out as a result of this, and it's not all going to be roses. So I think that it's very important for us to be able to recognize those emotions in ourselves, also recognize them in those around us, and again, work together to help each other through those things. And so let's switch over to Becky and see, how do you think that, or how could educators really support you as a parent during this time?
They could come to my house.
I knew you were going to say that. You know what? And that's actually that's actually a very common thread that I've been hearing from parents at my school. They obviously recognize that that can't happen,
Right.
but they're like, if somehow I could magically zap you here, and that would be great. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, continue on.
I know. I'd feed them. I'd stay 6 feet away from them. I'd do whatever they wanted, I would do. But I know that they can't do that. And my heart just goes out to the teachers because I know I'm working from home and I'm working remotely and I can see the challenges with my job. And I can't even imagine trying to connect with anywhere between 20 to hundreds of students if you're looking at middle school and high school teachers. So my heart really goes out to the teachers and the administration. So I think really, I believe that the teachers have the kids' best interest at heart. And so I think it's really important to support the teachers as a parent. That said, I think that a lot of you guys have brought up some really good points about students that need that extra care and, the ones that don't have the computers. And if school districts can check out laptops, they absolutely should. If they have that ability to do that, our school district is doing that this week, and parents are able to go to the schools, or they're going to be delivering laptops to homes of families that can't get to the schools, and they're going to check those out during the duration. And I just think that's amazing. But those kids, they do need that support. And again, like the food, the kids that rely on the lunches and everything, those are the families that I'm the most concerned about. And I think that we need to support the teachers who are supporting those kids. And so, yeah, I mean, whatever we can do just to be kind to one another, I think that's the most important thing right now. And also, a sense of humor goes a really long way. So, as long as we can continue to find the humor in some of this stuff, I think the better.
Very, very true. Thanks for pointing that out, because I think that we all can get bogged down in how serious this is and how fearful we might be feeling. And gosh darn it, laughter really is the best medicine, and we need to make sure that we're getting a healthy dose of that every day too.
I think that's true. I don't think fear is ever a good place to go in any situation. And I think when we make decisions based on fear, that's a hard place to come from. So as much as we can alleviate that, I think we should.
Definitely a great point, considering especially that we're living in times that are kind of scary. So that's fear is a very real part of this pandemic and what people are feeling. So it's interesting that we brought up those ways to look at that and to handle the situation better. And Evan, thank you for your suggestions as well.
For sure.
I feel that we have unintentionally changed school forever in the last couple weeks because of the changes that have been imposed upon our education system. And one thing that I'm excited about is the opportunity for parents and teachers to move past structured conversations like parent-teacher conferences and, scheduled events like coffee with the principal at 9 a.m. and things like that, to having real dialogue, which is really what the EduTable is all about. So obviously that's very in line with our mission. And I'm wondering, going forward, now that we've kind of broken the mold, if you will, because we're not in our traditional roles anymore, how do you think that we can continue this into real dialogue? Evan, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one way is to really garner true, authentic feedback from all of our stakeholders and start with the students, right? What we're seeing now, in my opinion, is truly the adults that are having more angst and challenges about how education is going to change versus the students. They've been doing everything virtually anyway. This is their world. They're the ones that are used to that. We were the ones that were kind of pushing our way of learning on them because it was comfortable for us. So I think we really need to think about the students in terms of, how they learn, the ways they learn, and also how can we become facilitators of learning versus just providing direct instruction so much, because the young people have a lot of answers. The other part is that as education systems and teachers, this is really a great opportunity where we can move forward into being very innovative, thought provoking, and changing the way that we've done business that will help all of our students be successful for the rest of this the rest of the 21st century and beyond.
I think those are really excellent points, Evan. And I like what you're saying, because basically I'm looking at this as having broken the mold in terms of our communication. But you're right, it's broken the mold in so many places and given us an opportunity to learn and rebuild stronger. Melissa, what are your thoughts about how we can continue this kind of wave of different communication and move towards more authentic partnership?
Well, when you were talking earlier about the conversation that you were able to have with your son's teacher, just, having her talk to you and ask you how you were doing and how your children are doing, I think that's probably the best place to start, because it was solely focused on the relationship. And once you build that, you have a true, authentic relationship, whether it's with your students in the classroom, whether it's the parents and families, or whether it's within your staff or your coworkers. I think that authenticity and that genuine relationship building is the foundation for it all.
Definitely. And I think we're all in a very vulnerable place, right? Because none of us really know how to proceed or how things are going to be from day to day. So maybe just that vulnerability opens a space for us to be more authentic with one another. Becky, what are your thoughts about how we can move, from the parents' perspective, about how we can move more towards a real dialogue and partnership coming out of this?
Well, again, I'd like to reiterate that I love that the teacher called you, excuse me, to see how you were doing. Coffee with the principal at 9 a.m. is great, but I can never go to that because I'm a working parent. So, I don't know if anybody's ever said this, but it makes me feel bad that I
Me
can't go
too.
to I
That's how
can't
I
go
always
to
refer to it. Me too, Becky. I'm with you. I never could go to one of them.
Yeah, and then you're like the mom who's not there, and you're just like, "Oh." And so I have a couple teachers, in my kids' past that have checked in on me and have asked how we're doing. And oftentimes it's through email, which is fine. I get that because I'm working at my desk and, email is probably the best way to get a hold of me in some ways because I can't really take a personal call, even though to me, my kids' education is not like a personal matter. I think it's just as important as anything else in my day, if not more important. But I can't necessarily hop on the phone in my office where I share an office with two other people. So when I get an email from a teacher kind of letting me know what's going on, especially, if my kid's falling behind or they're not doing what they're supposed to be, I really, really appreciate getting that heads up so that I can support the teacher and support my kid at home and still keep the conversation going. So I really do like those little reach outs. And I'm sure that, coffee with the principal is probably awesome. Maybe someday I'll get to go. I don't
Maybe
know.
we
Other
should
donuts.
ask.
So yeah, just those personal.
Well, as a principal, I certainly hope that somebody enjoys it, because I know that I do. But I do recognize that not everybody can come, and we have to find lots of other ways to have people have that access point for sure. So I know that we are starting to run a little short on time. So I just wanted to jump in and say thank you so much to everybody here on our panel today. Nicole, you've been amazing. Evan, thank you so much for your perspective. And you know what? It's really been a pleasure to have you on, Becky, as our parent representative. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, I would also like to thank all of you, and also just to acknowledge that with everything that's going on right now, for you guys to have taken the time to dedicate to this project really means a lot. Thank you very much.
This is
And,
the high point in my day.
well, that's awesome. It's the highlight of our day as well, but we're educators, so we're glad to see that you felt it as well. Thank you all for pulling up a seat today and being part of our show. Please reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram at the EduTable. We would love to hear from you. We really do love to hear from you, by the way. The more voices that we hear from, the more diverse and rich the conversation becomes. Also, please remember to check out our articles and videos on our website at theedutable.com and to subscribe so that we can deliver all of this original content right to your inbox. Thank you for listening, and remember that children always benefit when parents and educators work together.